What's up? What it do, soul fam? Welcome down my rabbit hole on the internet. This is K&M Witchery, and I am Kat Nicoletta Monroe, for those of y'all who may not know. I also happen to see dead people, like on a regular basis. I am a psychic medium, an intuitive coach, amongst other board certifications like NLP and hypnotherapy. And this is more of an introductory video that has been long overdue, I would say. Once upon a time, a long time ago now, I asked this lovely community to ask me anything they wanted to know, whether it be about me or spirituality in general. And y'all came back with some really fantastic questions. So this video is going to be divided into two, perhaps more in the future, who knows. This video is going to be more so about psychic abilities and mediumship in particular. The next one will dive into many other types of curiosities. It's a bit of a mixed bag, but very commonly asked questions nonetheless. So hopefully y'all will be able to get to know me a little bit better and learn something new along the way. And yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say. If you resonate at any point of this video, please let me know with a comment down below, or of course subscribe and join the Soul Fam tribe. I'm always so excited to hear from y'all. And away we go with question number one. What's your astro top 6, and what placements do you think attribute to your psychicness? I would say my top 6, let's start there. My Sun and Venus is in Libra, my Moon is in Aries, my Mars is in Gemini, my Mercury is in Virgo. I am a Sagittarius rising. As for what attributes to my psychicness, this is a difficult one for me to answer because I'm biased and believe everyone is psychic in their own cool, unique way based on like all of their little starlight intricacies and shits. It's hard for me to answer this question. If I could attribute one thing, if I knew, maybe my Jupiter. That's in the 8th house. It's also conjunct my asteroid Lucifer, which would explain why I have such accessibility to, well, I mean, dead people in general as a psychic medium. I've been diving into asteroids, this is a side note, with my girl Nikki at the Holistic Crystals. And if you ever want an astrology reading, go to my girl, okay? She'll take care of you. We have been really educating ourselves and having some fun with asteroids and different findings there. So I really highly recommend y'all look into that, okay? Because when it comes to the overall psychicness, I could attribute that to a lot of different really cool placements. But as far as planets are concerned, yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna stick with Jupiter on this one and call it. Next question. What type of abilities do you have exactly? Oh, how much time you got. All right, so I am primarily a clairvoyant, which also attributes to some pretty cool telepathic abilities and of course, fortune telling and things like that. I would say that my second strongest ability would be now my clairaudience, which is psychic hearing. It used to be clairsentience, all of the feeling of the emotions and shit, mixed with a lot of clairempathy. I'm highly clairempathetic, but I trained myself to hear more than anything. It's my safer ability, I would say, the one that I feel most comfortable with, you know, and it's a lot less overwhelming for me personally. So yeah, my sense of touch in general is highly enlightened, I would say. It can become a little bit overwhelming when I travel, and so I require a lot of like solitude and like just like, yeah, claircognizance is something that I accidentally taught myself recently. I lacked it for the longest time, and in building my programs of like teaching different types of psychic abilities for those who would like it, so by the way, that's something I offer, I had unlocked claircognizance on my own, you know? So that was pretty cool. What else is there? It's not so much zoolingualism as it is like a really intense connection with animals. I am very in tune with animals and what they're thinking and yeah, just how to react to them. And I'm also very like, yeah, like they really love me, but I love it. I really do. I don't know. There's a lot of abilities, honestly. There are a lot of the intangibles too, like clairtangents, for example, and then like smelling and hearing when it comes to clairalience and what's it called again? Anyways, there'll be a lot of videos coming out about different psychic abilities, so be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Curious George asks, you're so confident. Have you ever come across people who were judgmental about your abilities? How do you deal with it? First of all the time. all the time. The judgments are real. The misunderstanding is real. It's something that I've been accustomed to my entire life, which I'm sure we'll get into with other questions. But how do I deal with it? I would say through personal discovery. My confidence is a trick. And it's also based on me being really rooted in myself. Anything that I didn't understand about myself, whether it be about my abilities or anything else, really, I took the time to learn about. I peeled back those onion layers. I did all of the self-discovery things, whether it be through therapy, whether it be through astrology or numerology, different types of personality tests. Human design is great. I don't know, just unlock different things. And the more that I understood myself, the more that no one can rock me. Yeah, you just don't care after a while because you know. So I highly recommend some self-discovery, and that'll just start boosting your confidence. Otherwise, you fake it, okay? I'm literally holding onto a rock because I'm nervous, believe it or not. Next question. Spoken Trees asks, what's your main purpose when using your psychic abilities? I would absolutely say that it comes down to healing, clarity, and evolution, which has basically become my tagline at this point. The healing was selfish to start and is in many ways, as someone who is very curious about personal understanding and self-discovery. It has really helped uncover and peel back some onion layers that assisted in my own healing, in particular when it came to working with the unconscious mind and diving into things like NLP and hypnotherapy. These are tactics that help me really understand more about myself and thus be able to pay it forward too. Clarity is second nature to me as a natural clairvoyant. I was born with these abilities. Yeah, just answering questions for people and offering them some insight and confirmations is just what I really like doing. Evolution just comes with a package. The more that you see me, the more that we work together, the more that you literally start uncovering your magnificence and stepping into your potential and thus evolving into the person that you really want to be. And that also includes your own psychic abilities and trusting in your intuition and things like that. Yeah, my special power, I would say, outside of any psychic abilities, is uncovering people's magnificence and holding that space for them and giving them the opportunity to recognize it, you know? If you need to hear it today, Soul Fam, you're powerful as fuck. If you want to know more, come talk to me. Let's work together. Who knows? Maybe we'll do some really cool things together. The Soul Fam asks, what makes you different from all the other psychics and coaches out there? This feels like an interview of sorts. What's happening? What makes me different? It's a really cliche thing to say, but I would say authenticity. It took me a while to actually find my voice when it came to YouTube in particular. I have started and restarted many channels, many ways of reading. I tried to, not necessarily that I was copying other people, but I tried to ride different waves, you know, and it wasn't authentic to me. It wasn't genuine. I wasn't doing it out of integrity, you know? And I also recognized too that my methods of reading was far different than other coaches and readers. And that's no disrespect to any of these beautiful content creators and beautiful mentors of the spiritual realms and things. It's just, you know, we're all doing our own thing, and that's the way that it should be. That's how you magnetize your own differences in the world and the types of change that help other people. I don't know, it's very personal, I guess, to me. What makes me different is I work out of my own authenticity and I stand firmly in that, and I also help you embrace your own, you know, because there's a power of uncovering your greatest essence, I would say. Yeah, I guess I just give you the power. I hope I answered this question. Let's move on. Are you more religious or spiritual? Definitely more spiritual. I will say that I still believe in God and spirit. It's just in my own way, my own forms of connection. If anything, I would say I'm more of like an omniist, because I believe that there are truths in all types of religions. At the same time, I don't like being told what to do, straight up. And when it comes down to it, my personal experiences have brought me more so down the spiritual route. I am a lot more accepted in my community this way as well, for being authentic and then standing in my own. So my reasons are personal, but to answer this question, I am more spiritual. Fantasy Eve asks, when was the first time you discovered you had abilities, and how did you go about controlling it? I find a lot of people start experiencing things, then get confused and either shut down or invite in something they didn't expect. Facts. I will start off by saying I first discovered my abilities when I began to first realize that other people were unable to see and hear and feel things that I was able. It's a very interesting coming out story, if you will, because it took actually a lot of like de-learning. I genuinely didn't understand at all how I can see someone standing right there in the corner and you're unable to. I had no idea how I was able to respond to certain things or how I can see the energy of nature. It seems psychedelic, I understand. And I guess I went eventually about controlling it through self-discovery again and really learning things like psychic abilities, putting names to things. And I had something to prove to myself for a really long time because I was like, you can't tell me that something's not there. It's like the phrase like, you gotta see it to believe it. Well, like I do see it and I do believe it. So like, But anyways, yeah, just more so discovering it, playing more, and being more curious, right? Because to your second point here, Fantasy Eve, yeah, people do start experiencing things that they didn't expect in the spiritual realms when they do get confused. I would say that confusion and the shutdown that you mentioned is more so in and around dissociation. You can follow your curiosities and also invite something unpleasant. And to be honest, since this was me as a kid, yeah, I've done a lot of oopsie daisies and invited certain things, but that's how I also learned how to be able to deal with different types of spirits that find me or that I come across, or, you know, like yeah, it taught me a lot. Just put in that perspective. But again, it comes down to you really knowing yourself, how it is that you function, the power that you hold, and thus you be able to set your own rules and things like that. But I would primarily focus on being in your body to do that as well, because a lot of us spiritualists become highly dissociated, and it's the opposite of actually being able to utilize your abilities. You got to be in your body to do that. So that's the way that I would go about controlling it. Stacy asks, what's the day-to-day like with your abilities? I would say it's fairly normal, like any other person, to be honest. I wake up like anybody else. I go to work like anybody else. I think now, these days, in this junction in my life, my spirituality has become so intertwined with my job and my career and the path that I've chosen for myself. So it becomes a lot more in flow for me, as now I'm no longer resisting my spirituality and going to 9-to-5s, which at one point I did love. I was in sales, in IT sales specifically, and like business development for many a years, and eventually I fucking hated it. I went against myself for too long, and well, I've embraced who I am and incorporated that into my lifestyle. So the day-to-day is much quieter than it's ever been before, as I'm sure a lot of people would assume. Seeing things, hearing things becomes a lot more overwhelming to psychics. And when we incorporate more of the practice, they kind of lessen because we take more control of the attunement, if you will. So yeah, but we just regular people at the end of the day, you know, we just have some extra conversations on the side once in a while. The Soul Fam asks, how did you go about getting into the spiritual business? Okay, so I mentioned in the previous question that eventually I began to like hate my job. And I think that's honestly where it starts. When you start looking at your life and realizing that you're not at all where and who it is that you want to be, call it a quarter life crisis if you will, whatever. You're done, you're fed up. That really happened, right? At the same time, I also really wanted to heal my chronic illness. So I started learning different modalities and I started embracing my own spirituality, and one thing led to another. The spirit at one point had shown me a particular tarot deck and I bought it, and 2 days later my best friend at the time was already at my house and we were flipping some cards, and she's like, holy shit, yeah, here we go, you're doing it, we found it. I guess for a long time coming too, I kept asking for a sign of like what it is that I'm supposed to be doing with these abilities, because I never really knew how to communicate it in a way that didn't make me feel crazy, didn't make other people feel uncomfortable, and was also forthright. And so tarot, I guess, was my key to that. And well, it just expanded from there, I would say. But yeah. We've come a long way, I would say, but I am very happy with what it is that I've done so far. So if y'all have ever been thinking about starting your own business of any kind, I 10 out of 10 recommend it. It is worth it. Next question. Ree asks, for the curious minds, you use the word witchery in your business name. Oh yeah. Often the word witch is stigmatized and seen as something negative and to be feared. How and why did you choose to use this? First of all, thank you so much for the question. I love the stigmatization that comes with certain words. I have quite a rebellious streak. The more that you look into my own astrology chart, you will definitely recognize that. I have Uranus in the first house too, by the way, so it also explains the blue hair. But nevertheless, this is kind of like my big fuck you to society and things like that, you know? I felt like I was really cast out for a long time for my weirdness and my witchery, if you will. And so I took it on, you know, it allows it to become something that I more so embrace and find empowering, you know, and it kind of smacks people in the face, and I like the reaction that people have. Additionally, if that's not enough, if we really look at witchery as far as a definition is concerned, it's the practice of witchcraft and sorcery, but it is also an irresistible fascination. That's exactly what spirituality has become for me. Perhaps it's who I've innately become or who I was manifested to be, but when it comes to the philosophies and life and of the mind and clarity, this is just the route I wanted to go. So witchery just happened to fit. So I went with it. And then K&M is obviously Kat Nicoletta Monroe, but I guess that was more obvious. The Soul Fam asks, what was it like growing up as a psychic? Confusing. I hadn't understood why people couldn't see it. And I was also, it got me really angry too, because when people would call me a liar, I began to not really know what was the truth or a lie at some point, because I was being taught something entirely different. I guess the way that I could explain it is, imagine someone being colorblind to the color blue. Okay, I have someone I know that looked at my hair and said, hey, is your hair bright gold? And I was like, whoa, no. But they're unable to see blue as it reflects in the light, right? I mean, that's color blindness for you, more or less. That's his reality. So I can't say to him that my hair is not golden, because to him it is. That's what he sees. That's what he knows it as. He can call it blue all he wants, but what he sees is gold. So it was essentially like that when it came to my own psychic abilities and such. It was too second nature. It was too in my face. And so, yeah, but I also had a lot of fun with it too, right? There were some curiosities that led me down the wrong types of rabbit holes, I would say. And you know, spirituality can get a little bit freaky sometimes if you don't know what you're doing. But once I did also learn how to do more of that, I got to play more too and have more fun with it and embrace my quirkiness and my weirdness, I would say. But yeah, I don't know. I was just a kid. Spoken Trees asks, do you ever have trouble discerning between what your clients may want to hear and what they may need to hear? Or do you take neither into account? I take both into account. Absolutely. I think when it comes down to what they want to hear, that's why they book with me. To be honest, I think everyone that ever booked with me knows that they're going to get it straight. When it comes to what it is that they need to hear and perhaps maybe how it's going to be offered to them, that's where the range would come in, I would say. I take into high account the emotional state of somebody, so I wouldn't just rip a band-aid on an incoming potential negative outcome, whatever that may be, right? I do also take into strong account whether the specific information might steer them the wrong direction or might enhance their emotional state in a worse way, which would then cause more of like a snowball effect. So sometimes I may inadvertently mention that, hey, there's going to be some hardships coming up, so I would recommend this and this and this, but I wouldn't be very specific as to what that event is, because I care about the well-being for my clients and all, right? So I do take a lot into account, and I always give y'all what it is that you want and need to hear. That's just how I roll. So hopefully that answered that question. Trisha asks, when you do a reading with someone who has passed, how do you see them in your mind? So this is a really interesting question, because I use my clairvoyance to see them the way that you would. So essentially, me as a medium, I am the middle person of a channeling, of a connection between yourself and another. And being that I first would connect to you, whom then you will be asked to think of that person, to envision them or feel them or hear them, however it is that you innately connect. I then take that on. And beforehand, of course, I would call that particular soul in. I, in particular, just require the first name of an individual. That seems to be the only connection I have, and then the rest is energetic work and things like that. They go through my own little protection steps as well. Always use precautions when connecting to the other side, guys, and go with a trained professional who would keep you safe in the process too. Not to freak y'all out, but like still. But yeah, I would essentially connect with them the way that is best connected with you, because then I can also relay information in a way that will resonate with you the most as well. So I send out that energetic invitation and do what y'all paid me to do, and that's connect you. Holly asks, do you have spirits that try and connect with you without a host? Oh yeah. I am a very strong vessel, if you will. I'm my own portal, okay? Many who have connected with me didn't have a particular person that they latched onto. Like, for example, if I'm in a store and like your grandma wants to say something to you, you know, I don't really have a lot of those experiences. I tend to be very bubbled up and protected and things like that, because that's why it gets really overwhelming, I'm not gonna lie. But nevertheless, yeah, all the time. I guess is the long story short, all the time. They're everywhere. I move to different places, and there are spirits that already reside in these places, and I let them do their thing, you know? Like, we both keep each other's peace. They do their thing, I do mine. Anything, of course, of a lower vibration can't reach me anyways. So I don't really have any issues and things like that, but sometimes it can get a little bit overwhelming when they have like a message or story for me to translate or to help them with and things like that. I used to have a lot of interactions with more earthbound spirits or souls, however it is that you resonate with that. They're very sticky energies, I would say. And yeah, they just kind of want help, like moving on and things like that. I used to take on a few of them, but like I said, they get really sticky, and then like when you do it to one, then they all start storming in and it gets really exhausting. So anyways, but yep, so love you. Mary Lynn asks, I booked a mediumship session with you last year and it still blows my mind till this day. Are you ever unable to connect with a spirit? This is a yes and no kind of an answer, because the connection itself has never been a problem for me. It's whether or not the soul actually wants to communicate. In doing so, they often bring another spirit in their place to continue the conversation, if you will. As a psychic medium and just as an intuitive in general, I take into high consideration people's privacy and things like that. I am not the type to be snooping in people's minds as often as they may assume. I am very shut off, and the same applies to the spirit realms. And so when a spirit says no, I don't feel like connecting, it also doesn't really have much to do with the person that I'm connecting them with either. It could just very well be that it's just not the right time, and the types of messages that could come through are better delivered through somebody else. So you could very well, as an example, be wanting to connect with your grandfather, and he allows your grandmother to step in his place and carry on. It takes some extra time sometimes, but always there is a connection in place, at least through me. Do surprise medium occurrences ever pop up? Yes, on a natural basis. We already spoke about that in a previous question, but I would say that when it comes to like general readings, yes, they do. Usually if I'm ever having like a tarot reading, like a spiritual check-in, for example, or my intuitive readings, they may pop in when you are at a very low state. Usually the most random mediumship occurrences happen when a person really needs a high pick-me-up and really need the proof that they are never alone and highly protected and guided, and that someone is there. Those happen more so far and few in between. Like I said, I'm much more controlled. But when they do ever come in, most of the time, again, when really, really, really required, but it does happen. It must be so scary and overwhelming for you. If you could get rid of all of your abilities, would you? Honestly, if you asked me this like 13 to 15 years ago, I would have said absolutely, take it all. And for a long time in my life, I did in fact really reject it. And I started going down a route that just didn't suit me. Long story short, you know, it wasn't bad or anything. It was opposite to my most authentic self. That's in fact when it was the scariest and most overwhelming too, because when you ignore your intuition, it gets louder, it gets more in your face. And the more that you practice it, the more that it becomes part of your lifestyle, nicely intertwined, and you work with your spirit, you work with the universe, etc., right? And that's where you bring in all of those spiritual means. So now it's great, it's peaceful. It offers me that healing, clarity, and evolution that I signed up for. So right now it's a great experience, and I love my abilities, and I am always excited in enriching it, and it's constantly developing, it's constantly growing. So sometimes it is overwhelming, yeah, to say the least, but most of the times it's really wonderful now. So no, I would never get rid of them. Not after everything I've learned. With mediumship, are you normally able to pick up on the more darker and negative spirits, or is this something completely different? Of course, there's always a cleansing process and a protection spell that I would put across, even if it's not a spell, it's more so an intention, to be completely honest with you. I make sure that whatever messages are coming through, whatever connection is being made, is a happy and healthy one. My intention is never to cause pain or illness or discomfort, and especially not in myself as a practitioner. So if I was to pick up on anything negative, and of course darker energies and entities, etc., exist, it's the matter of knowing what to do and how to deal with it, which is another reason why like playing with energies are not for everybody. And you know, we can go down the fun ghost hunting paths and things like that, and when you play a little bit too much, sometimes you just bring in energies that just don't really belong. And if you don't know what to do with it, or how to make yourself feel better, or are wondering why you're constantly having like bad dreams, or you're waking up at particular hours, or you feel someone's close to you, and that's just when you begin to analyze things as more dark and negative as well, because they're so misunderstood. Most of the times though, it's all just energy. Energy is neutral until we give it something, and that's ultimately what connection occurs anyways. So yeah, I can. Long story short. How do you know it's not just mental illness? I love this question. It's a really good question too. On a side note, there is going to be some really cool scientific findings right now in the psychology realms, where they're going to be really looking at mental illnesses and different types of disabilities in general as psychic abilities and things like that. There's gonna be some really cool intuitive correlations that are going to be discovered more so, and more discussed too as well. So look forward to that in the near future. I don't know. But how do I know it's not just mental illness? I've only ever been diagnosed with ADHD, good old ADHD, that I did as a kid because I was a menace as a child. I also have only ever been diagnosed with two other things, and that's endometriosis and adenomyosis. So it has nothing to do with my psychic abilities. My intuition is also able to be turned off. I have more control over it. It's something that doesn't, I just know it's not. So there's no reason for it to be diagnosed as such, because there is no such diagnosis, you know? But always go and see someone too, by the way, a professional, someone who can offer diagnoses, which I'm unable to with my accreditations, but nevertheless, to go to a professional who can is highly recommended at any point, right? Always go down the path of self-discovery, however it is that resonates with you. Is there anything spiritual you wouldn't do? There's a lot of things spiritually that I wouldn't do. Spirituality is a blanket term at this point. What I would never do is cause harm intentionally, attempt to play with people's free will. Even as a fortune teller, I offer the path that is likely to happen and let everyone know that you are in control of the direction, of the speed, of whether or not things happen. You can just say no. And you can say yes, obviously. And so, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot, but I'm a good witch. What can I say? And I guess that is that. Let me know with a comment down below what it is that you think about this video and this Q&A. Did you learn something? I hope you did. And if there are any questions that perhaps maybe you would like to ask and that I could answer in another video, populate them down below. Why not? Say hello and what's up, and I'll see you guys in another video real soon. Bye, Soul Fam.